And let me make it speaker view. Okay, all right. So let's get started with this week's class. We are still on Canto 12, and we're going to do or try to do chapter 6 through 11 if we have the time. And let me see. So chapter 6, the title was Maharaj Parikshit Passes Away. So you may recall from last week that Shukdev Goswami started telling Parikshit Maharaj that he's not his body, he's a spirit soul. The spirit soul never dies. The spirit soul never dies. And he said, you're not going to take birth again. Don't worry about it. And, certainly not coming back as your own son or grandson. So you don't have to worry about that. And Parikshit Maharaj said, well, thank you, but I'm not worried. I have listened to Shrimad Bhagavatam, which is full of wonderful, nectarian pastimes of Lord Krishna. And I'm feeling fearless. I mean, that's one of the benefits of listening to Shrimad Bhagavatam. You become fearless. And I feel very close to the Lord right now because of the devotional activity of listening to Bhagavatam from a pure devotee like yourself, Shukdev Goswami. And it is by your mercy, he's saying Shukdev Goswami, that actually, like they say in devotional service, we see through anybody. You see through our devotions,
mind.
Jnani Chakshu.
No, we see through our ears in devotional service.
Yeah.
Right? So he said, I've seen the Lord through my ears by your mercy. And I've seen this personal form of the Lord, not just something impersonal. And as a result, I got no fear of death. And then Parikshit Maharaj begged for permission from Shukdev Goswami to permit Parikshit Maharaj to fix his heart upon the lotus feet of the Lord Krishna, and to give up his life. Shukdev Goswami granted that permission, and then he departed. Shukdev Goswami left. And then there's some other things happen, like Maharaj Parikshit goes to take bath and all that, and he sees his mother, Uttara, who says, look, I was so upset. I didn't quite hear what Shukdev Goswami was saying, so please give me a summary. So we know that Laghu Bhagavatamrita is the summary of whatever Parikshit Maharaj heard from Shukdev Goswami. So he narrated her that, took his bath and all that, came back, sat down in a, what you would call the yoga position, I guess that's the word, and started meditate upon the Lord. And basically he was gone by the time Takshak bird came in the guise of a Brahmin. He bit him, and the body of Maharaj Parikshit immediately burned to ashes, but he didn't feel any pain or anything. He was already gone. Well, all this happened. The son of Maharaj Parikshit, anybody knows the name?
Janmeja.
Yes, Janmeja. He became very angry. Obvious, you just see your father being killed, literally killed. So he became very angry. And he started a fire sacrifice for the purpose of destroying all snakes in the universe. And so the Brahmins sat down, they started chanting mantras, and all sorts of snakes started falling from the sky in the fire. And they kept on going, but all sorts of snakes of all sizes were coming, but no Takshak. So King Janmeja asked the priests, hey, I see all this, literally, I'm talking millions of snakes falling in the fire and dying. But what's going on? What's holding Takshak away from this? Aren't you chanting your mantras properly? And the Brahmins told him that, look, Takshak has actually gone and taken shelter of Indra, and Indra has promised to protect him. That's why these mantras are not having an effect. So Janmejaya asked, are there mantras you can chant that will forcefully attract Indra to the fire? I said, sure, we can do that. So they said, go ahead. So they start chanting mantras that attracted Indra, who was sitting in his plane along with a bunch of other demigods, and Takshak and all that. And they all started falling towards the fire, like forced to, there's nothing they could do. They were literally being pulled by the mantras, and they were about to fall in the fire when Brihaspati, everybody knows who Brihaspati is, right? Who is Brihaspati?
The guru of the demigods.
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you. So the guru of the demigods, he came and he advised Maharaj Janmejaya, please understand, my dear king, that Takshak cannot be killed because he has drunk the nectar provided by the demigods. So please give up this whole sacrifice, and enough killing has happened, and let it go. So King Janmejaya said, okay, that's fine. He offered his respect to Brihaspati and stopped the sacrifice. So Takshak's life was spared. So in the Shrimad Bhagavatam, now basically the scene changes. Now from what was the place where King Parikshit was listening to the Shrimad Bhagavatam?
Namisharayana.
No, King Parikshit was listening for Shukadeva Goswami.
At the Ganges River.
Beside the Ganges, but it's basically Hastinapur. And so now the scene shifts to Naimisharanya. So who was asking and who was answering in Naimisharanya?
Sutta.
Sutta Goswami was answering. And who was asking questions on behalf of the sages? Shaunak. Correct. Shaunak Rishi was asking on behalf of the rishis, and Sutta Goswami was answering. So now scene shifts to Naimisharanya. So now Shaunak Rishi asking Sutta Goswami now to please explain a totally different topic. How the disciples of Srila Vyasadeva edited and spoke the different Vedas. So Sutta Goswami said that Lord Brahma heard the transcendental sound vibration from the flute of Lord Krishna. And from that subtle transcendental vibration that he heard came the sound of Om. So that's the syllable Om that came out. Now Om is also known as Omkar. So using this Omkar, Lord Brahma created the original Veda, and he taught them to his sons. And since then, the Vedic knowledge has been handed down through the disciplic succession of different gurus, spiritual masters, until the end of Dwapar Yuga. At the end of Dwapar Yuga, before Kali Yuga began, Vyasadeva divided that one Veda into how many Vedas? Anybody knows? Four. Yes, 4 Vedas, and instructed various, sages into these 4 Vedas or Samhitas. And that is why he's called Vyas. Does anybody know what the meaning of the literal meaning of the word Vyas is? Not Vyas.
Division?
Vyas. I'm sorry?
Division.
No.
Well, ideas.
Diameter of the circle?
I think you know it, but using the wrong words.
विस्तार व्यास विस्तार करे वो
हाँ नहीं वो तो है sorry, somebody said diameter or perimeter. I didn't hear.
Diameter, Prabhuji.
I'm sorry. Yes, Mataji. Oh, you said Aditi. Yeah. Diameter is the right word. So Vyas is the Sanskrit word for diameter. Now, what is a diameter? Anybody know?
Length of the two ends of the circle.
Yeah, the middle, the center of the circle, and double. What do you say?
Okay, yeah. So
Double of the radius. of the
any
circle.
2 points of the circle, where you draw the line, it goes to the center of the circle. That's a diameter. And the job of diameter is it divides the circle into equal parts,
Yeah.
right? If you have only one diameter line, I mean, there's 2 parts. If there are 2 of them, there's 4 parts, and so on and so forth. So that's why, because it divided into 4 parts, he's known as Vyas. And of course, Vyasadeva, a matter of respect. Okay. So just a little bit of trivia, why he called Vyas. Anyway, then he changed the story again. And he started talking about another very famous sage by the name of Yajnavalkya. Hopefully you've heard that name, Yajnavalkya.
Yes.
He was, I'm sorry? Okay, so he was one of the disciples of Vaishampayan, who's another very famous sage. Actually, he's known as the Veda Acharya of the Tatritriya Shaka of the Yajurveda. So we'll explain that in a second. And then in the Bhagavatam, there's a very short version of the story. So I did some research and I went outside of Bhagavatam and I found some more details that I'm going to share with you. But I just want to let you know that these details are not in the Bhagavatam, but the summary is. So same story, but I thought it'll make more sense if I give the details. Otherwise, when I read it first time, I said, what happened? I'm not sure what happened. Anyway, so that's why I did this. Anyway, so what happened was, according to this, that one time a bunch of rishis, they met near, Meru mountain, which means basically that was not on planet Earth. And they decided that they'll meet for a few days and people will get their turn to speak. And they said, anybody, can you please mute yourself? Just give me 1 second. Okay, that's better. And yeah, so they said anybody who will not come attend the meeting on their allotted time, which means appointed time, which means that at that time they have to speak. If they don't show up at that time, then they will incur the son of Brahmahatya, which is the killing of a Brahmin, for 7 days. I'm not sure why they said only for 7 days, but they said for 7 days. When the turn for Vaishampayan Muni came to speak, that was the day when he had to perform the Shraddha ceremony of his father. And Vaishampayan Muni said to himself that I have to do my Shraddha ceremony for my father. I cannot skip that. And if that means that I get the sin of Brahmahatya, killing of a Brahmin, and so be it. I'll ask my disciples to observe the appropriate penance to kind of atone for my sin. So he did not attend the meeting and incurred that sin of Brahmahatya. And then after that, he came to his disciples and he said, I have to atone for this great sin of Brahmahatya. And I would like you, the disciples, to perform appropriate penances for 7 days to atone for my sin. You may recall that Indra had also incurred the sin of Brahmahatya. Anybody remember the story? Who did he kill?
Vritasura.
No. A Brahmin before the killing of Vritasura, but related. Okay, so this was I'm sorry, go ahead. Sorry,
No, I was just asking if it was his father,
whose father?
Vritrasu's father.
No, no.
Because
No,
we recently read that, no, Prabhuji, when we were doing the prayers of Vritrasu.
No, it was not his father. Remember,
I think
Vritrasun.
he had first so first he did an offense to his Guru Maharaj, and then he called in a Brahman to atone for it. But then he ended up killing that Brahman also.
yes, so and that's the Brahman's name I'm asking.
Oh no, I can't recall.
Okay, Krishna. And so he had the sin of killing a Brahman. So how did he get rid of it? Anybody remember? How did Indra got rid of? How did Indra get rid of the sin?
Yeah, divided into four, Prabhuji.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, one. Yeah, some women took it. Some, I
So-
think, foam, water at the form of foam.
Yeah, so water, earth, woman,
yeah.
and tree.
Yeah.
So he divided into those four, and that's how he got rid of his. But here, Vaishampayan is saying, no, I don't want to do that. I need you guys, my disciples, to perform penances to atone for my sin. Yajnavalkya was one of the disciples. So when he heard that, he immediately stood up and he said, Guru Maharaj, all these poor spirited young students, they will not be able to do or undergo the penances of such a nature to get rid of your, or to atone for your sins. So instead of all of this, let me myself alone observe the penance in this manner, in a manner that nobody else can. And then you'll be able to atone for your sin from my penance. And Vaishampayan said, no, don't do it alone. Let everybody do it. And Yajnavalkya said, no, Guru Maharaj, we don't need to bother these people. They are poor spirited. They're not very qualified. They'll screw it up. It won't work. So let me do it. I can do it. So that Vaishampayan, the Guru, got very offended. And he said, what kind of audacious attitude is this? And he said, you're so proud. You're so conceited. Get away from here. Get away from me. I don't want to see you anymore. Enough of you. You are showing your despise of these wise Brahmins. You're insulting them like on their face, to their face. And he said, I don't want you to get out, but before you go, give back to me immediately whatever you have learned from me. Very interesting. So we often talk about how do you unlearn? And that's what Vaishampayan is asking Yajnavalkya, give back to me immediately whatever you have learned from me. So when Yajnavalkya heard that, he literally threw up. He vomited. He vomited out the collection of hymns from Yajurveda that he had received from his special master. It was basically, like food you have eaten came out in the vomit. The other disciples were watching this whole thing, and Yajnavalkya left. Now, these disciples were very greedy for that vomit because this represented all these hymns from Yajurveda that they had not been able to learn. By eating it, they would automatically learn it. So they asked permission from the Guru. He said yes. So they all took the form of partridges. The Sanskrit word for it is tittiri, I think. It's tittiri, partridge. So they took the form of tittiri, all these disciples, and they ate it all up. And basically, by eating it up, they had the direct revelation of all these hymns from Yajurveda. And because the tittiri birds ate, that is therefore called Tattiriya Yajurveda. Tattiriya Yajurveda. There's also Tattiriya Upanishad, you may know. Okay. There's another word for it. It's called sorry, I forgot. Anyway, Yajnavalkya walked out, and he said, I will never have a human guru again. And he said, I'm going to get sun god to become my guru. So he started doing prayers and meditation and penances and whatever on the sun god Surya. And he knew that Surya is a master of the Vedas. So his Yajnavalkya's desire was to acquire fresh Vedic portions that were not known even to his own guru, Vaishampayana. So with his penances and meditation and prayers, he pleased sun god, who appeared in the form of a horse, and he taught all these brand new fresh portions of Yajurveda that were not known to anybody else in the whole world, not even Vaishampayana. And this portion of Yajurveda is now known as Shukla Yajurveda, which reminds me, the other part that I was talking about that was vomited and eaten by the disciples, that's also known as Krishna Yajurveda, which is black. So this is Shukla Yajurveda. It's also known as Vajsaneya. Vajsaneya basically means that something that comes out of Surya in the form of a horse through his manes. So something that comes out quickly or rapidly from Surya in the form of a horse through his manes. That's called Vajsaneya. So Yajnavalkya took all these hymns, collectively known as Vajsaneya, and he divided them into 15 branches. And each branch had hundreds of these hymns. And each branch had got an expert. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Each branch was mastered by one of the disciples of Yajnavalkya. So the most famous one is Kanva. That's the name I know. Kanva was one of the disciples who mastered one of the 15 branches of Yajurveda. So I'm going to stop here because I think it's starting to get confusing. So feel free to ask any questions or comments.
Prabhuji, my question is that he received a knowledge which is not existing in existing Vedas. So this is outside the Vedas, and those are the divided into 15 we are talking about. Is that correct?
So Prabhu, it doesn't say they were not in the Vedas. It says that they were not known to anyone, which means they were there, but not only Surya knew that.
Okay. Okay.
So he did not. He was not composing the hymns. He was just narrating them, which means they existed, but nobody else knew.
Yeah. Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Sure.
Prabhuji, you just said that Vyasji, we spoke about literal meaning of his name is diameter, right? So
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So my question is, what does it? I didn't understand about it. What does it represent? What is he trying to say, that Krishna should be center of our prayers? What does it mean exactly?
No. It just means that he divided the Vedas into 4 parts. That's all it means.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else? Okay. All right. Then I'll keep going. In the next chapter, Sutta Goswami was asked by Shaunak Rishi to talk about Atharva Veda and talk about who compiled the Puranas, what are the characteristics of Puranas, and anything else related to the Puranas. So he got a lot of details about Atharva Veda that to be honest, neither did I understand very well, nor can I repeat it because I didn't understand that very well. So I'm going to skip that. but I'm going to talk about the 10 topics that he said are comprised, or the Purana comprises of those 10 topics. And you may recall that from a previous discussion we had in the first canto. So you may recall Sarg, Visarg, which is the creation of the universe, and the subsequent creation of the universe, those two. Then he talked about, like Bhagavatam, for example, talks about maintenance and sustenance of the living beings. Then he talks about various Manus. And I just want to remind you, how many Manus are there in a day of Brahma?
14.
14. Yes, thank you, Prabhu. And in each Manu, there are 6 different personalities that are different from one Manu to another Manu. So, for example, the Manu itself. So, which Manu are we on now?
Seventh.
7th. And what's the name?
No.
Vaivasa.
Vyasadeva. Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, you had, so second was Swarochish, I think. Third was Uttam. Fourth was Tamas. 5th, not sure. 6th was Chakshus. 7th is Vaivasa. So, you know, Brahma's day is divided into 14 parts. And so about 70 Chaturyogis in each Manu. And then you have the sons of, sons of Manu. So any famous sons you remember of Manus, any Manu?
Priyavrita?
Priyavratas, yes, absolutely. Uttanpad, yes. Anybody else? A hint is the dynasty of Lord Ramchandra.
Ikshwaku.
Yes, very good. Ikshaku. So there's some of the names. So they are different. The chief demigods are different. Indra is different. Do you know who's going to be the Indra in the next Manvantara?
Bali Maharaj.
Bali Maharaj, yes, absolutely. The Saptarishis, the 7 great sages, they are different in each Manu. And then the Lord appears as Manvantara Avatar, a different personality in different Manvantaras. Anybody knows any Manvantara Avatar name? Okay, so Yagya, Vibhu, Satyasen, Hari, Vaikuntha, Ajit, those are some of the names of the Manvantara avatars. Anyway, and then it also talks about the different dynasties that you may recall leading from Bhagavatam, and their activities of those kings. And then, of course, the whole annihilation process. So those are some of the 10 topics that every great Purana contains. And then there was a comment that said that the lesser Puranas deal with only 5 of these. There are 18 major Puranas. Anybody knows any of the names of 18 Puranas?
Narad Purana, Garud Purana, Vishnu Puran, Shrimad
Brahma Puran, Shiv Puran.
Yes.
Bhagavad Puran.
Yes.
There are.
Padma Puran.
I'm sorry?
Padma Puran, and then there is
Padma
Agni
Padma
Puran.
Puran, yes, of course. Anything else? Some of the incarnations, they have their names, Puranas on their names. Matsya Avatar, Matsya Puran, Vaman Puran, Vara Puran, Kurma Puran. Sorry? I'm sorry? I couldn't hear.
Vishnu Avatar, Vishnu,
Vishnu Puran?
Avatar,
No, we're talking about Puranas.
Purana name.
Vishnu Puran.
Yes, Vishnu Puran, yes. Okay, anyway, so yeah, so there are some of the 18 Puranas that I mentioned. And as you know, they are categorized in three ways. Mode of Puranas in the mode of goodness, Puranas in the mode of passion, and Puranas mode of ignorance. So he talked about that. Then he changed the topic again. So before I do that, any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, what exactly is the meaning of Purana? Purana.
Yes. So Puran means ancient. And Purana. And Puran means a book containing some ancient history or ancient knowledge. That's a Puran.
And like, for example, Vishnu Purana, who is it written by?
Oh, that's a good question. So who wrote all these 18 Puranas? Anybody knows?
Brahma?
Vyasadeva.
Vyasadeva. Yes. He compiled all the Puranas, just like he compiled the Vedas and
Who,
Mahabharata.
sorry, Prabhu?
Vyasadeva?
Vyasadeva. All right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Sure. Anybody else? Okay, all right. So now the story changes again. So now Sutta Goswami starts to talk about Markandeya Rishi and how he saw the Lord's Maya, the illusory potency. So basically, let's see. What happened was that Shaunak Rishi got a little bit confused about the story of Markandeya Rishi he had heard somewhere else. And so he asked Sutta Goswami to please tell the story of Markandeya Rishi, because he said, I've heard that he had an extraordinary long lifespan. Actually, he said, please confirm that he lived through 2 kalpas, which is a day of Brahma. And he said, Markandeya Rishi had taken birth in my own dynasty, so he's my predecessor. But he used to move around alone. And then I heard this Shaunak Rishi talking. I've heard that he was actually swimming in the ocean of devastation for millions of years. So how long is the night of Brahma? How many million years? Or billion years, whatever?
4.3
4.3 what?
billion.
Yes, so 4.3 billion years. So that whole night, he said, I've heard that all night he was swimming in the ocean, devastation ocean, or the ocean of devastation water, and that he saw a beautiful young child lying on a banyan leaf. And so I just need to understand, like, how can somebody live through 2 days of Brahma and on and on and on? This whole story is it's very confusing to me. So please, can you explain that? So Sutta Goswami said, sure, glad you asked. So he said, Markandeya Rishi actually at a rather early age, he received the initiation, sacred thread from his father. And he he vowed to be a lifelong celibate, brahmachari. And he worshipped the Lord for 6 lifetimes of Manu. Now, does anybody have any idea how long a Manu's life is? Just even approximately?
Yeah, Prabhuji, you mentioned 70 yuga cycles, right?
Correct.
70.
That
so
is correct.
multiply by 4.3.
4.3 or 8.6? I'm sorry. My apologies. Yes, 4.3, yes. So how much is that? About 300 million, 306 million. That's how long one Manu lives. So Markandeya Rishi performed his worship of the Lord for the lifetimes of 6 Manus, which means 1836 million years. Nobody else we know who did something for that long. Even Hiranyakashipu was not that long, anywhere near that. And he said in the 7th manvantara, Indra got very worried. He said, what's this guy doing? Does he want my throne? So he did his thing and called his servant Kamdev, the Cupid. And he said, go interrupt this sage's, worship and austerities and penances that he's doing. Take all the associates you want, but whatever you need, take it and interrupt his austerity and his penance. So they went, and Kamdev tried everything. There was one, I forget the girl's name, there was another Apsara. She started playing with the balls, and as she was running around, her sari came loose and the wind came and took all her clothes away, but Markandeya Rishi was not bothered. And as always happens, Indra got worried and he apologized and all that, and Markandeya Rishi said, just go away. So after the 6 lifetimes of Manu, that long, what did we say, 1836 million years, the Lord appeared in front of Markandeya Rishi. But he appeared in the form of Nar Narayan. So 2 of them. As you know, one of them is dark complexion, one is white complexion. And so Markandeya Rishi offered his obeisances, then full Dandvat Pranam kind of thing, and worship the Lords by offering them comfortable seats, water for washing their feet, and offered lots of prayers. So after he was done, the Lord was already pleased with Markandeya Rishi, but after receiving these prayers and reception, they were very pleased, very satisfied, and they said to him, please, my dear sage, ask for a benediction. And I guess, Krishna had a plan or whatever. The Markandeya Rishi said, my dear Lord, or my dear Lordships, I want to see your illusory energy. Like typically devotees say, please keep me away from them. Markandeya Rishi said, please, I want to see it. So the Lordship Narayan said, okay, so be it. And they left. They went back to, where do they live? Anybody knows? Narayan, where do they live? They're still living.
But Badrikesh?
Yes, Badrikashram, yes. Yes, Badrikashram. And anyway, so, and then life was going on. One day, Markandeya Rishi was offering his evening prayers. But suddenly the water of devastation flooded where he was, and flooded the, as it does, the 3 worlds. The water inundated the earth, the outer space, heaven, celestial regions, all this, like everything up except the top 3 planets. So Janalok, Taplok, and Brahmalok, I guess, or Maharlok, sorry. And Taplok is same as Brahmalok. And so everything else inundated underwater. And so everywhere, water everywhere, not a drop to drink, one of those. Everybody obviously died except Markandeya Rishi. His hair was all scattered and he started to wander alone in the water. It's total pitch dark. So he's swimming there as if dumb and blind. Nobody talk to, can't say anything. And I don't know, it doesn't say it, but maybe even too scared to speak. And blind because can't see anything. And there he was for millions of years. Right? So, as if that was not enough, you can imagine how hungry he must have gotten, how thirsty he must have gotten, but can't drink the ocean water, is salty. And then he was being attacked. He was being attacked by this monstrous fish. He was being battered by the wind that was, blowing at 400 kilometers an hour. I just made that number up. Waves which are probably, hundreds of meters high, and he was aimlessly moving around. Complete darkness. He had fallen into this water in complete darkness, and all these things are attacking him. So you can imagine how easily he'll be exhausted, and there's no escape. He's getting hungrier, he's getting thirstier, he's getting increasingly exhausted, and finally he just lost sense of all direction. So much so that he couldn't even tell which way is the earth, which way is the sky. It's like almost like a plane flying in a whiteout condition. You can't tell. Was the horizon, the sky, where is Earth? That's why a lot of airplanes crash. But he didn't even have the choice of that. He just couldn't tell which way is which. Anyway, sometimes he will be engulfed with the great whirlpools. Sometimes he'll get hit by this mighty waves. Has anybody gone to an ocean and had a wave break on his back? Anyone? Or her back? I have done that, and it hurts. And that's when I'm standing maybe 10 meters from the shore. So imagine being in the middle of the ocean. The waves have, as you know, I'm sure from the stories, waves have overturned many huge ships. So he was being beaten by those kind of waves. As I was saying before, sometimes this fish or other aquatic monsters will attack him. They'll threaten to devour him, and then they'll be fighting each other, like two aquatics, huge aquatics will fight each other right beside Markandeya Rishi. And I can only imagine how scary that must be. I was thinking about something that happened to me back in the, 75, 76, something like that. I was driving on Highway 27. For those of you who are from Toronto will know, it's a north-south highway. And in those days, there used to be drive-in theaters. So you basically drive into this place, you park your car, you pull a speaker inside your car, and you watch the big screen in the field. So those are drive-in theaters. So I was going to one of those, and it was very, very icy roads. Extremely icy. So we're going slowly, and suddenly I noticed that about 100 feet ahead of me, there was a car spinning in my lane. Now, those of you who have driven in ice probably know that the biggest mistake you can make is hit your brakes. So the wise thing to do is not touch the brakes, take your foot gently off the accelerator, and just pray. So I started praying, and I said, maybe I'll just try to slowly change lanes. So I looked to my right, and there was a car spinning right beside me. So there's a car spinning in front of me, getting closer and closer. There's a car spinning on the right side of me. The left side of me is the guardrail. And I'll never forget the feeling of fear that I had. So as I was reading this, I was thinking, that was nothing compared to what Markandeya Rishi must be feeling right now, with these big monsters fighting with each other right beside it. Anyway, so sometimes Markandeya Rishi was feeling lamentation, sometimes totally bewildered, sometimes totally miserable, sometimes was so scared he didn't know what to do, and sometimes he was so sick. Like, imagine the motion sickness being in the ocean like that for millions of years, and the pain he would feel. Like, he was saying, okay, this is it, I'm about to die. And literally millions of years passed as he was floating in that ocean, in that deluge of water, I guess. And his mind was totally bewildered by the Lord's Maya. So as he was floating, here and there, not knowing where he's going, he suddenly discovered a small island. On this island was a small, I don't know about small, but on the island was a banyan tree. I think the word they used in this Bhagavatam was young, and that's why I thought it's small, or that it must have been small. Anyway, a banyan tree, which had flowers, which had fruits and all those kind of things. And upon one of the branches of this tree, he saw there was an infant boy lying within a leaf. And this child was so effulgent, there was no darkness around this boy, this little child. As if he swallowed up the entire darkness around himself. The boy was dark blue in complexion. The Bhagavatam says it's like a flawless emerald. It says that the lotus face of the boy was shining, very, very effulgent, extremely beautiful. And his throat bore the lines like a conch shell, the 3 lines. very broad chest, finely shaped nose, what do you call it? Beautiful eyebrows, beautiful, lovely ears, teeth looking like pomegranate seeds, I guess. And like just everything about this boy was so, so beautiful. His eyes were reddish, like the whorls of a lotus eyes, and a beautiful, sweet, enchanting smile on his face. As he breathed, his hair trembled, his navel showed three lines or three folds, you can say, that moved with his breathing, and his abdomen looked like a leaf. So Markandeya Rishi was just watching in the amazement, this little boy, an infant. And as he was watching and fully amazed, the little boy, the infant, took hold of one of his lotus feet. Actually, I should say his lotus toe, and placed it within his mouth and began to suck on this toe. So that's the scene he saw. So I used to try to visualize this until I went to this wonderful place called Lemunadham, where Chichur Gopinath is there. And the head pujari there invited me inside where the altar was, and he showed me a Shila, Shaligram Shila, which was the shape of Krishna sucking his toe on a banyan leaf. So I would say the Shila was maybe, well, at least 10 inches, if not a foot long, perfectly shaped as Krishna sucking on his toe. So I didn't see what Markandeya Rishi saw, but I did see the Shila, and I'd invite all of you, next time you go to India, make a trip to Ramunadham. Beautiful place, amazing deities, and there's a whole story about them that I don't have time today, but an amazing, amazing story about that. Anyway, so as Markandeya Rishi was looking at this child, he suddenly felt that he was no longer tired. All the fatigue he had was just vanished, just looking at this child. And he was so happy and ecstatic to see the boy that his hair was standing on end, and he was manifesting the 8 symptoms of ecstasy, but he had no idea who this boy is. He's totally confused. Who's this boy? So he went to the infant, approached him. And just as he approached the child inhaled. And did that, Markandeya Rishi went inside his body through his mouth, just like a mosquito sometimes can enter your mouth or through your nose, whatever. And inside the stomach of this infant, Markandeya Rishi saw this entire universe looking exactly like it was before this dissolution. He saw everything, the whole universe, everything, the mountains, the ocean, everything. And he was like, you can imagine being sucked into somebody's stomach and then seeing the whole universe, how perplexed and how astonished you would be. So that was the condition of Markandeya Rishi. He saw the skies, the heavens, the earth, the stars, the mountains, oceans, islands, continents, you name it. He saw demons, he saw demigods, he saw forests, he saw countries, rivers, cities, mines, villages, cow pastures, cows. If you can imagine it, that it exists in the universe, he saw it all. He even saw Varnashram. So, and it manifested in front of him as if the whole thing was real. There's no dream. It's not in somebody's stomach. It's like standing somewhere and he's watching all this. He saw Himalayas. He saw the Pushpabhadra river where he lived. He saw his own hermitage, where he saw the Lordship of Narayan. I was just watching it, just like behold this, as Krishna says to Arjuna, behold this scene. What's the word he uses? Mam Yogashwarya. I think that's the word he uses in Gita. So it's like Krishna saying to him, just watch, just behold this scene. Just looking at. And as he was beholding this, that little child exhaled. So just like when Mahavishnu exhales, the universes come out. And this child exhaled, the universes stayed inside, but Markandeya Rishi came out. And so basically got expelled from the body of this little child and basically thrown back into the ocean. And so from the ocean now, or this ocean, Markandeya Rishi saw the banyan tree now was growing, excuse me, growing in size, and the child was looking at him with a very loving, sweet smile. He was glancing at him, and Markandeya Rishi did what anybody would do in a situation like that. He took the Lord's form through his eyes into his heart and just embraced it. Very, very amazing feeling of bliss, and he just kept embracing this child. But just as suddenly the child had manifested himself, he became invisible to Markandeya Rishi. And when the Lord disappeared, the banyan tree, the island, and then the great water of dissolution, and the dissolution of the universe, etc., everything disappeared in an instant. And Markandeya Rishi found himself back at his own hermitage, just as before when he was doing his evening worship. So I'm going to pause, see if there are any questions or comments before I move forward.
Yeah, Prabhuji. Because Markandeya Rishi saw that when Brahma sleeps, that period, 4.3 billion, that's what he saw, that period. So was it a dream, the way we understand Markandeya Rishi was sitting in his ashram, and then suddenly all those, the wind and the rain came, and then he suddenly finds in that, and that Lord appears. So, he sees everything. So he saw that, and at the end of seeing the Lord, that means the Brahma's night got over. Is that the conclusion?
That's basically was the question that Shonakshi asked. Did he live through 2 days of Brahma?
Okay.
Right? And to be honest with you, it didn't really get answered in the Bhagavatam. That is not I saw. So I have to conclude that this was the Lord's Maya, because that's what he requested.
Yes.
Right? So this whole thing was the Lord's Maya. So he didn't really, I'm speculating a little bit, only based on, doesn't say very clearly if he actually lived through the night of Brahma, or was it just the Lord's Maya. The reason I conclude was Lord's Maya is because that's what he asked for, and that's what Lord says, so be it. So this had to be Krishna's Maya that he saw.
And another thing, like we see Brahma, through them we could understand what happens when Lord Brahma sleeps, in the whole night, and
Correct.
all these things, we get a glimpse through that. That is what the,
right.
The scripture is talking about.
Yes.
So another, we see the fish avatar also, incarnation also happened the same way, right?
Correct.
So that Manu,
but that was real. That was real.
That was real, yeah.
That was real, yeah.
The Lord whole night he was speaking the Katha to Manu and other sages. Those were there in the boat, right?
So I don't know if Lord spoke continuously. He did speak, but it's
okay.
not clear to me that he spoke continuously. He did row the boat continuously.
Okay. Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. Anybody else?
There is a Markandeya Rishi temple at Shabad Markanda near Ambala Kent.
Yes. Yes, there is. Thank you, Prabhu.
Which is situated at Shabad.
Sorry,
Shabad Markanda.
Yes.
It's called Shabad Markanda, next to Kurukshetra.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. We lived there for 4 years.
Oh, Hari Bol. Jai Ho.
And Sudevi used to go
Kartik
all Kartik months in the morning 4 o'clock.
4:30.
Wow, that's great.
The ladies group morning time woke up, everyone knock the door.
Nice. Very nice.
So,
Okay.
Mother, that Markandeya Rishi's temple, what do you see there? Do you see that this small baby boy, or what do you see there? Is it
Yes. Why and Shivji.
And
Sorry, say again.
Shivji
Say again, I didn't hear.
Small boy,
and Shivji is there.
Shivji.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So actually, we're going to talk about that also. Just in a minute, we'll talk about that. Any other questions or comments? Okay. All right. Then I'll keep going. So that was a nice segue to the next part of the story. So one time, soon after this particular Leela happened, Lord Shiva was traveling with his wife Parvati, traveling in the sky, and he passed over the hermitage of Markandeya Rishi, and he noticed that Markandeya Rishi sitting there in his trance, meditating upon the Lord. So Mother Parvati got not so much curious, but she said, this is one of the wonderful devotees. Why don't you give him some mercy? So he said, okay. So he went and presented himself along with his wife, Parvati, before the sage. And his idea was that he'll grant him, some benediction to reward him for all his austerities. But Markandeya Rishi was such a great trance that his material mind was not working, not functioning basically. And he didn't notice that Lord Shiva and his wife Mother Parvati are standing right in front of him. They're standing there, in person. There's no Zoom call here. This in person, they're standing in front of him. He was so absorbed in the meditation that, basically he didn't have any external consciousness. So he didn't know him, he didn't know the external world, just meditating. So Lord Shiva understood, what's going on. So it is something very wonderful. He used his mystic power to enter Markandeya's heart. And when Markandeya Rishi saw Lord Shiva suddenly appear within his heart, and he saw Lord Shiva with his 3 eyes and 10 arms and a tall body, very, very, very effulgent, more effulgent than the sun, wearing this tiger skin and carrying a trident, a bow, arrows, sword, all those things, that shield, things that he normally carries. Of course, his prayer beads, don't forget that, his damru, a skull, axe, all those paraphernalia that Lord Shiva carries. He saw all that in his heart. So he literally jumped up. He was so astonished, came out of his trance and said, hey, who's this? Where did you come from? And he opened his eyes and he saw the Lord Shiva with Uma, his wife, Parvati, or Uma, Parvati, same thing. And there are so many followers that always follow Shiva and Parvati whenever or wherever they go. So obviously, Markandeya Rishi very respectfully offered his obeisances. He offered his words of greeting, offered them a sitting place, and started praising them, his prayers and all that. So Lord Shiva then praised him and all the saintly devotees of the Lord, and then requested Markandeya Rishi to choose whatever benediction he desires. So Markandeya Rishi, I guess he had learned his lesson. So he said, I beg you to give me unflinching devotion to the Supreme Lord and to his devotees. So give me unflinching devotion to the Supreme Lord and the Supreme Lord's devotees, and to you, which is basically when he says his devotees is included, but he wanted to be specific. He said, and to you. So Lord Shiva was very impressed and was very satisfied with the devotion shown by Markandeya Rishi. So he gave him that, but in addition, he gave him what he had not asked for. He gave him boons of benediction, of fame, freedom from old age, and freedom from death until the time of universal dissolution. So, and I read this very carefully. It said time of universal dissolution. That is the end of Brahma's life. That is not a day of Brahma, which means Markandeya got the same lifespan as Brahma. Not more, but same. And he said you can also have, you'll become Trikalagya, which means you'll know the past, present, future, you'll be renounced, your knowledge will be realized knowledge, not Gyan, but Vigyan, and you'll be the teacher of all the Puranas. So many benedictions without even being asked, he received from Lord Shiva. So I'm going to pause again, see if there are any questions or comments.
Yeah, Prabhuji. So Lord Shiva gives him a benediction till the end of Brahma's, as we are saying. So, but Brahma has already passed 50% of his life. So
whatever the rest is.
Okay.
But still, there's a lot, right?
It's a very, very lot.
So half of Brahma's life is still 155 trillion, 20 billion years.
Yeah. So the original way, my thinking was that only he lives through Brahma's days, first day and then night and the next day. That's not true. He got a longer life than that.
Well, that's right. So Shaunak Rishi was confused whether he lived through 2 days of Brahma. And now Lord Shiva has given him benediction to live for the rest of whatever time is left of Brahma. So yeah, much longer than just 2 days.
Okay,
That's how I understood it. Yeah.
Thanks.
Because universal dissolution, I think that's what it means. Otherwise, it would be partial dissolution.
But universal dissolution cycle, I was also trying to read only those 4 lines. It says cycle, universal dissolution cycle. So it is the same thing, or it is the
okay, so I don't have it in front of me right now, but I didn't read the cycle. So if it's a cycle, then maybe it is just 1 day. I don't know.
Yeah, I was also confused I was trying to see today itself. That is a cycle, dissolution cycle.
Okay, so I'll go back and read it again.
Okay.
If it's a cycle, then maybe it's not the rest of his life. If it's not, then it's the rest of his life. So sorry if I got you confused, but regardless, very, very long time.
Very long life.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Sure. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Then move on to the last chapter today, which is chapter 11. And in this chapter, Shaunak Rishi asked Suta Goswami to explain the process of Kriya Yoga, which basically is the regulated worship of the Lord. And he said, also tell me, how do the devotees of the Lord conceive his limbs, his Lord's limbs, associates, weapons, ornaments, etc., in terms of material representations? It's kind of a strange question. So in other words, basically he said, if you had to compare them with something material, what would they be compared with? So because he said material representation, Suta Goswami started talking about the universal form, which is the material representation of the Lord, And he said, the earth is his feet, the sky is his navel, sun is his eyes. So you may remember, how does it go? Verse 52, yeah. So like, it talks about the sun, and somewhere else talks about sun and the moon being his eyes. So here is saying sun are his eyes, wind is nostrils, moon is mind, heavenly planets his head, directions are his ears, demigods his arms, God of death, his eyebrows. Let's see. Moonshine, his teeth. Trees are his hair on his body, and the clouds, the hair on his head. So, I mean, he goes on like that. Talks about the Kaustubh gem, talks about the Shivatsa mark. Flower garland represents the material energy. Yellow garment is the Vedic meters, and his sacred thread is the syllable Om. What else? The earrings, the shark-shaped earrings represent the Sankhya and Yoga. And the club that he carries is the prana, the life air. Conch shell is the water, the element water. Chakra is the element fire. And the sword, the element ether. What else did he say? Oh, yes, lotus flower. I talked about that. Lotus flower represents the various opulences. Umbrella, the spiritual abode, Vaikuntha. Garuda, the Vedas. Lakshmi, the internal, represents internal potency. And Lord's 8 doorkeepers, his eight mystic perfections. What am I forgetting? He talked about the 4 quadruple expansions. I said those are the 4 quadruple expansions. He's the source of the original source of the Vedas to the flute. What else? I think that's all I can remember. And then he said, anybody who remembers the form of the universal form in the morning, he can realize the supreme truth. So at that time, Sonakshi said, okay, can you also please explain the expansion of the Lord in the form of sun god? And Sutta Goswami said, he manifests himself as sun god, basically to sustain the world. You need the sun to sustain the world. And he manifests his potency of time as the sun travels throughout the 12 months. And it talks about, and I don't remember the names, 12 different demigods who act as the sun for different months, and they go around the universe, I guess. That's all I can remember. So I'm going to stop here. See any questions or comments? No? Okay, so I'm going to stop here, and what was I going to say? So I want to talk about the next few weeks, and next week we'll do chapter 12, and week after we'll do chapter 13. That will be the end of Shrimad Bhagavatam. I would like to do one more week after that, basically for general questions, discussions, and that will be the end of this series.
Yeah, Prabhuji, it's coming to an end. We don't want to see the end. It was so nectarian.
I cannot believe that some of you stayed with me for more than a year just for Shrimad Bhagavatam, and then some of you were also with me for Bhagavad Gita. So that's almost 20 months. The entire pandemic, you stayed with me. Amazing tolerance. I appreciate that very much.
Next you should start Nectar of Devotion.
Sorry, Prabhu?
Nectar of Devotion you can start.
Okay, so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that after we finish with Bhagavatam, and see if there's any demand for it, and we can discuss that.
And unfortunately, I couldn't continue with you, Prabhu. Usha.
Sorry, Mataji, say again.
I said, unfortunately, I couldn't continue. I so wanted to, so wanted to.
And I appreciate that, Mataji said things happen, but hopefully in the future you can stay with us. And,
If we change the day,
oh, is that right?
Friday, Saturday, maybe Friday or Saturday.
Yeah, Fridays are taken already, Mataji. That's the problem.
Hmm.
Yeah, and Saturdays becomes difficult.
I see.
Yeah, and like basically every other day is taken. Monday, Tuesday versus Thursday, Friday. Some Saturdays and many Sundays. Like this month, every Sunday is taken. So it becomes difficult to change. So,
Right.
yes, but hopefully you will still have access to the recording. And I know it's not the same, but hopefully you can get the information anyway. And I keep sending that with every note I send out, and it's on Facebook. It's also on YouTube.
Yes, Prabhu. I've been watching it.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Sorry, I can't be more accommodative. Sorry about that.
No problem. No problem. Thanks.
Sure. Anything else? Okay, in that case, Vancha kalpatarubhyascha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.